Blog Talk Radio.
Welcome, world. Welcome once again to Tuesday Talk with Key West Lou. I am your host, Louis Petrone. Well, big night tonight. Two important things happening. One, at precisely the same time that I am starting my show, President Biden is starting the State of the Union address in Washington, which means that perhaps no one is listening to my show at the moment. I wouldn't be surprised, or just a handful. For those of you who missed the show, and it will be all of you perhaps as I suggested, most of you know I am archived. At 10 o'clock when my show is done, it is immediately archived for all time. My shows from 8-10 years ago are still out there. And the reason I know this is, though I do the show 9 o'clock every Tuesday evening, very few people listen to me at 9 o'clock Tuesday evening. Most people listen to the show on the archived version. So most of you will be there and will listen on the archived version. The other thing is, this is perhaps, it's a different show tonight. I feel that we are in our country, the most dangerous time we have been since World War II. What's going on in the Ukraine is no joke. It could easily spread to the United States. And I'm talking about a nuclear disaster. Here's the story as I see it. It's crazy. No question about it. You can see from what's been happening. He started this war, 6 days ago? He expected it to be over in 2 days. I just read before I went on tonight that he had, 150,000 people waiting on the border to go in. 80% of the troops have already been committed in one fashion or another in Ukraine by Putin. And he still hasn't won the war. He's not even close to winning the war. He's going to reach a point, though, I fear, where he's going to be totally exasperated, and I'm going to put it very bluntly, pissed off. He isn't going to understand why. Here he goes in with all this power. The war should have been over right away with the Ukraine, and they're making a mockery out of him, a fool out of him. What he doesn't understand is he's doing it to himself. A war he should never have started. And as it turns out, he is nuts the way things look. He has not consulted, it appears, with his military or any of his close advisors because he has no advisors. He did this all on his own. If you watch him now when he meets with his quote-unquote advisors, he sits at a very long table at one end and a handful of advisors at the extreme other end. He doesn't want to sit close to them. He does not listen to anyone. He doesn't listen to anyone at all. He does what he wants. And he's fighting this war not as wars would be fought today, but as his smaller wars have been fought over the last 20 years, not picking up on things that things have changed. So we're dealing with a man who has regressed mentally. I heard today the man's 78 years old, and that's old. The average age in Russia is 70. I'm 86. I think right now I think I've got it going better than he has mentally because he's made moves I can't conceive of it would have made at this stage of the game. So anyhow, that's the story there. And what I'm doing this evening, because of the importance I attribute to what is going on, the fear I have that we could be in trouble. Trouble could be in a week. Look how far he's gotten in 6 days already in the Ukraine. Never forget, he has nuclear weapons. And when I mention that, let me say this about nuclear weapons. Russia got them because they were purportedly a power at the end of World War II. They negotiated them. Stalin negotiated well. Stalin wasn't crazy, but he was just as bad as Putin. He didn't mind killing people by the millions. However, Putin has improved on his nuclear supply. The United States, Russia, and some other countries have gotten into smaller nuclear weapons, whereas what we dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki could wipe out a whole town and 200,000 people. We have now developed smaller nuclear warheads that can do away with a town of 1 million people, 50,000 people, and won't spread as badly. But it's a nuclear weapon, and it's totally wipe out for that area. Whereas we have developed 100 of those nuclear warheads, Putin has developed 2,000. You heard me, 2,000. Russia has the largest and most modern nuclear war supply of any country in the world, even exceeding the United States. Now, because I consider everything important, that's what's been happening this past week, my show is a total Ukraine-Russian one. Nothing else, because it is that important. I'm sure all of you realize and appreciate that. So let me get into it, and let me say this. My blogs this week have been 98% Russia, the Ukraine, because it's just, I think it's that important. I think most people do also. I sense there could be a war that will personally affect the United States, and that means me and you and our families and friends. So that's all I've got. So I went through my notes because I prepared my blog from my notes the previous week, and I have so many notes. I've got pages and pages on my yellow notepads with an S about facts that I put together this past week concerning the war, many that I didn't get time to use in my blog because no one would ever finish reading the blog. So I couldn't put my show together like I normally do. There is generally a consistency, a flow to the show. Too much here. I tried. I couldn't do it. I would never have finished. It would have taken me 10 hours. I still would not have been done. So I'm taking from my notes at random. There will not be a consistency, but the facts are the facts, and they're enough. So hopefully I will get through with what I'm saying so there's an understanding. I make myself clear as to the points I want to get across. One, that we're in a very bad situation. So let me start now. The State of the Union, I can't listen to it. I'll catch it in the middle of the night when it's rerun many times on TV. The interesting new news today is that the United States, this is going to be announced tonight by the President, the United States is banning all Russian aircraft over United States in the airspace over the United States. Many nations have done this, many nations, which affects economically, in many respects, what Russia can do. I mean, they can't fly their commercial flights in. They can't fly people in. They can't fly goods we may buy from them in. They can't get goods from us going out. It's a mess. It hurts them even more sanction-wise. So that's the story there on that. Now, let's get into the nitty-gritty. Putin's been acting strange lately. It's been reflected in the news. And if I repeat things tonight, you understand because I've got a lot of notes that I just scrambled them together. And the reason is nothing's going the way he expected. Again, he thought with 130,000, 150,000 on the border, the Ukraine would shit, if you excuse me, and he'd go in and he'd take control of the country in about 2 days. It didn't happen. He wasn't aware that the people of the Ukraine, what a proud people. I have never seen this in my lifetime, including our country, a nation with such pride. And their president, the Zelensky, this guy's only 44 years old. He's a former comedian. He was a TV comedian like Donald Trump. But this guy's good. And he's given to his people a spirit. He's added to the spirit of the Ukraine people. All right? So nothing's really going his way. These people are opposing him. I mean, they're making Molotov cocktails. They've got it organized by the thousands. They're giving their people guns. You can't leave the country for any reason, even if your family does, if you're from 18 to 60 years old, because you're going to fight for your country. And the people aren't complaining, the men, that is. They aren't complaining. And the Ukrainian government is giving them all guns. Some of them never shot a gun. They're being shown now. And go out and kill them. And the women, too, are getting guns if they want them, and many do. So, again, he has no real advisors. He has no one giving him good sense and judgment. He's upset because the war should be over by now. He knows he's coming over and looking like he's crazy. He's looking like, again, excuse my vile language, an asshole to the world. He is looking like a failure. Right? He has twice threatened nuclear war. No sane person threatens nuclear war, which means he's insane. It could be the end of the world. Can you realize the destruction if he bombed the United States with the big nuclears and we bombed him back? Because once his nuclear warheads get through certain defenses of our country, it's automatic. Nobody even has to press the button for our nuclear warheads to go towards Russia. Both countries are devastated, not destroyed totally, but devastated. It'll be 50 years before either comes back. Oh, the war dead. Hard to comprehend, hard to understand. It means the end of Russia. It means the end of the United States. China will probably come out of this thing best because they didn't get involved. They've got nuclear warheads, and they'll be the strongest country in the world. Let's talk about the 40-mile convoy of... He's got a 40-mile convoy out there of military vehicles. That means 40 miles long. They've been heading towards Kyiv, and they're not making much progress. They're very slow. It's come down to 3 miles a day, their traffic they're making or distance. And today they didn't do anything. They didn't move at all. And they're still 15, 16 miles away from Kyiv. Now, that convoy ever gets to Kyiv, they're going to wipe Kyiv out. They've got a list. They've got war vehicles. They've got missile vehicles. They've got tanks. They call this whole thing a convoy. It is 40 miles long, and it's on this big open road with no protection, but they got no planes to bomb it. So it stopped, but it stopped yesterday, and it seems abandoned. Now, the reason that is occurring is because the vehicles are running out of gas. I'm laughing. They're running out of gasoline. He didn't plan this properly. He didn't know he was going to have to use them this way. They're running out of gasoline. Also, when we speak about the gasoline, it has been revealed today that many Russian soldiers, many of them are not happy with this war. I would say most of them are not happy. They didn't even know they were going to war. They were told they're going out on an exercise. Turns out they're in a war with the Ukraine. Well, they're making holes in their gas tanks, some of them, so they don't have to get to that point where it's going to be Kyiv, and it's going to be building by building, block by block. Many of them will be killed, as will many Ukrainians. They don't want that. This isn't their headache, this war. It's Putin's headache. And they're punching holes in their gas tanks so the gas runs out. There's another reason. The Russian soldiers have nothing to eat. They're starving, just like some of the Ukrainian people are. I smile when I say some of these things because, and this shows that Putin didn't plan this war. He didn't go to his military advisors. Apparently, he didn't even tell them what he was going to do because the boxes of food for the Russian soldiers in these vehicles making up the 40-mile convoy have labels on them going back 5 or 6 years. The food cannot be eaten, for which reason they're abandoning the vehicles because they're hungry, these guys, and they're going into nearby towns and not brutally but nicely walking into grocery stores and supermarkets and just taking the food off the shelves and eating it right there. These guys are starving. just like some Ukrainians are starving. Great war that Putin planned here. This convoy is not there yet and may never make the capital. The problem is, and it's really not a problem, this convoy can be destroyed in less than a day. It needs planes coming down and bombing and shooting on them. The Ukrainians have an air force. It's not that big. And one of the reasons Putin isn't winning this war yet is that he doesn't control airspace. The handful, this is like the British Spitfires early in the war, Great Britain. What was it Churchill said in the history of mankind? Something to the effect that so much was owed by so many to so few. Well, these pilots are up there, and they're winning the air battle, which prevents him from controlling the sky. And if he doesn't control the sky, he isn't moving effectively because he needs his air power to destroy Kyiv also. But that air power isn't sufficient to wipe out the convoy. Now, I'm sorry to go into this detail, but my show's going to be like this tonight. I'm just sitting back here and talking things I've become aware of over the past week, most of which you have. Hopefully some have not, and you haven't forgotten it all, and I'm opening your eyes to some things that are happening. Right now, Ukrainian pilots are in Poland, and they are retraining, note the word retraining, on MiG-3s, okay? Now, the Ukrainian pilots are trained already on MiG-3s, but they haven't played with them or flown them in quite a while, except the ones they got going up in the air now. So they've gone there to train. Poland is providing MiG-3s for them, and they're also receiving MiG-3s from other countries. So I'm assuming, and I'm hoping, and I could be wrong, that between now and those 15 or 16 miles left to get to Kyiv, the planes from Poland, the Ukrainian piloted MiGs, will be over that convoy and blow it to hell. Possibility. Probability, I don't know. There's something I don't understand here. Why is Poland permitting this? My recollection, if I'm correct, if I'm wrong, I apologize, is that Poland is one of the NATO countries. They're not supposed to do anything that would contribute to the war effort in this fashion, and yet they're permitting planes to be flown out of their air bases over the Ukraine to destroy the Russian army on the ground. That could open the door to other problems. I could be wrong what I'm talking about here. Take it with a grain of salt, please. Let's see. Now, what else are they doing over here? Well, that's what's going on now with the convoy for the moment. This convoy, though, I wrote about this yesterday or today. I've written about it for 2 days in a row in the blog. I described it as a train of death. A train of death. Because it's 40 miles long, and and it's tanks, and it's other vehicles. These horrible. The whole thing's horrible. You understand the story. Now, let me tell you a little story that came up in the news this week. Some of the soldiers who are operating these tanks and other vehicles, military vehicles in the 40-mile convoy, who are hungry and desperate for food, have left them and have gone looking for food in nearby towns, little towns. There is a seaside resort by the name of Berdzyansk, and it's occupied by Russian soldiers. Small town, though. And there's a small shop there. The owner said, and I quote, "Frightened children, frightened looks, they want to eat." I have to talk about children and food first here. Frightened children, frightened looks, they want to eat. The Russian soldiers are coming in and taking the food because they're not eating. They went, for example, same fellow said he watched them go into a supermarket where they grabbed canned meat, vodka, and cigarettes. And this fellow said, and I quote, they ate right in the store. It looked like they haven't been fed in recent days. Now, the Ukraine, this guy, I got to tell you, this Zelensky and whoever his advisors are, they're smart people. I am so impressed. They know the Russian soldiers are being put upon, and they're not happy with Putin, and probably a lot of them are wishing they weren't there, and they want to induce them to leave Putin, to leave Russia and come over to their side. And here's a statement made 2 days ago by Zelensky, which I think is an act of brilliance. He said, "We offer the Russian soldiers cash and full amnesty, okay, to stop fighting." Full amnesty means they surrender. If they surrender, we're not going to do anything to them. We are also going to pay them right away 5 million rubles. Now, 5 million rubles sounds like a lot of money, and it probably was 6 months ago. Right now, it's less than $50,000 in American money because the problems with the sanctions already have caused the currency to crater because of these sanctions. That's a brilliant move, though. There's no report yet on how successful at all this procedure is. These Ukrainians are strange ducks. You notice how they're going to stay and fight. The women, too, young and old. Even though they got their babies, some of them with there, they're not leaving. This is my country. They're a proud people. I haven't seen this in so many years in my lifetime. I don't know if I've ever seen pride to this extent in this type of situation in my lifetime. And again, I am 86 years old. Here's a story that's interesting. A Ukrainian was arrested for partially sinking his $7.7 million super yacht he was employed on. The yacht was in Spain, $7.7 million, 150-footer. That's big time, my friends. The gentleman is a Ukrainian. He's about 50 years old. His name is Taras Ostapchuk. And what he did was, because he was irritated that this boat is involved, this yacht, and I'll explain how in a second, is involved or was involved in what's happening to his people. And he's in Spain on the boat. He's worked for 10 years on this boat. He's the chief mechanic. The yacht's name is Lady Anastasia. It's owned by Alexander Mizhev, okay? He is the CEO of a Russian military weapons company called Rosaboron Export. Now, Tarsa, he's a crew member, and he said, and I quote, "My boss is a criminal who sells weapons that kill the Ukrainian people." He was arrested. What he did was, this guy's terrific. He opened the water valves on the boat and flooded most of the boat, and so it got semi-sunk because of the flooding of the compartments. He said, and I quote, "I watched the news about the war. There was a video of a helicopter attack on a building in Kyiv. The armaments used for it are produced by the yacht's owner, his company. All right? They are attacking innocents." He told the judge, when he appeared before a court in Spain, he didn't regret his actions and, quote, would do it again. He said, and again, understand, this yacht suffered severe damage. And he's worked for these people for 10 years. He makes a lot of money, a chief mechanic on a boat that big who's been around that long. He said it was a good job as head mechanic and a good salary. He said, "I am not a hero. I'm a middle-aged man, but I have a lot of experience as a mechanic. I have never held a weapon, but if necessary, I will. Why not?" And you know what? The judge in the Spanish courtroom let him go. That's another insult to Putin. He let him go, and this fellow's on his way back to Ukraine to help his country. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Number of people wounded and killed. These numbers are hard to accept. I don't think there are any reliable numbers. The United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights said 2 days ago that on the Ukraine side there were 406 civilians who had been injured or killed. Of that number, 304 were injured, 102 killed. The 102 killed included 7 children. On the other hand, other sources are saying, other reliable type sources also, are saying that the number could be as much as 4,000, 5,000, 6,000. No one is actually sure. Another number that's come out that seems accurate is that 500,000 people have fled to neighboring countries. So that's the story on the numbers. Now, the Russians, the number of Russians dead is presently estimated in today's news at 5,600 Russian soldiers. That's a lot. What happens is this. Putin doesn't want those bags coming back to Russia with dead bodies in them. He does not want his people to know how many Russian citizens are being killed. Families will be furious. The people are already furious. They're protesting in the streets of Moscow and 50 other countries. So what is he doing? They have, I don't know if they were prepared and ready, but right now they have crematoriums. Crematoriums that look like they are artillery vehicles. They're huge, these artillery vehicles. And what they do is they take the bodies of their dead soldiers and burn them, turn them into ashes and dump the ashes. So no one will ever know how many were dead. No one, they'll say, well, so-and-so didn't come back. How do you know he's dead? And that's what Putin is doing to hide that situation. Osana Markaro, these names, boy, they're terrific, but his name is Osana Markaro V.A. He's Urane's ambassador to the United States, who, by the way, will be sitting with Mrs. Biden tonight at the State of the Union address. He's the ambassador to the United States, and he said yesterday that Russian forces invaded his country, or her country, acting like Nazis during World War II and hitting innocent citizens. Belarus, that country next door, it's a Russian puppet. That's what Putin wants to make the Ukraine, a Russian puppet. We never hear of Belarus, but country supposedly independent, but they're a puppet of Putin's. They're ready, they said, to send troops into the Ukraine as soon as this week sometime. We'll see, but that's what they said. Now, a United States defense official said this is the extension of the Kremlin in a place it shouldn't be, bringing people, other countries in. In this past week, missiles and aircraft launches have been coming out of Belarus and attacking the Ukraine. Belarus also voted in recent days to ditch its non-nuclear package. They agreed to be a non-nuclear state many years ago. They've said no more. We're going to be a nuclear state. And this happened to coincide with Putin's second notice that he was threatened. He's considering nuclear warfare. I have so much more to go. I've given you half of what I had prepared, but my time is running out. I'm sorry. I hope the show is of some interest to you this evening. I hope none of the bad things I suggested come to pass. I hope this thing ends soon. We all do. I don't think so. The only way it's going to end, the people have to rebel in Moscow and go in the building where our good friend Putin sits, take him outside and hang him. That's it. Otherwise, we got deep problems ahead of us. Thank you for joining me, and Good night till next week.